Welcome back to Life with Gains podcast. I'm Emmanuel.
And I'm Esther.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode. If this is your first time, if you're just now finding us on YouTube or even your favorite podcast platform, be sure to hit that subscribe button, like and comment. We would love to get your feedback, to hear how we're doing, just to start some dialogue. We would love that.
So we've been married for 10 years, going on 11 this October, and we have 4 kids, and we're all home. Are you home?
Every day.
We've been home since like March 10th.
All day.
So, yeah. So let's go right into our new segment called
People Over Things.
Mm-hmm.
If you guys tuned in for the last episode, Esther gave a brief overview of kind of what that means. And it's just a challenge for us to prioritize, literally people over things, finding moments in our lives where on most days we would be prone to choose a selfish option or to choose something over people, over the needs of whether it's our spouse, our children, a coworker, a neighbor, just trying to be aware and trying our best to choose people over things.
And that's based on Matthew 6:21. It talks about where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So that's just something that we always want to keep at the forefront of our mind. So do you have a people over things moment?
Yeah, mine happened actually just a few hours ago. So one thing I look forward to every Saturday and or Sunday is nap time for me personally. It ain't got nothing to do with the kids, just me being able to take a nap. And today it was a busy Saturday, and finally got to the point where I felt like I could take a nap, and I was approached by one of our children who was like, "Daddy, do you want to come upstairs and play Lego sports with me?" And I was like, "But I would rather honestly just sit here on the couch for a little bit." And he took that as, okay, I'll just bring the Legos down. So he goes upstairs and brings the Legos down, and we proceed to play. Move. Yeah, because anybody else would be like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Oh, I got you." Mm-hmm. And so for the next 15 minutes or so, just took that time to play Lego football with my son on the couch. And I think it spoke to his heart and challenged my heart to say, in this moment, I have the opportunity to write positive or negative onto my son's heart, and just being intentional to write on his heart something positive. And so that was my people over things.
Cool.
What about you?
Mine was Friday. It's been a long month for me. It was a very long week as I was dealing with migraines for a really long time, almost a whole week, and just some back leg stuff going on. So by Thursday, I think is when that afternoon just kind of went all up in flames for me. Not like it wasn't like an angry yelling thing. It was just like, I'm losing it. I have lost it. And your brother actually texted me, he reached out to me and was like, "Hey, what's going on? Are you okay?" And I was like, "This is kicking my donkey tail." And he just reminded me of people over things in a simple way. And so I made Friday half a day. I was like, this is the last. We're going to get as much work as we can done before 12:30, 1 o'clock. And we're going to a field somewhere after downtime. And that's what we did. And now we're on spring break. And I chose my health and my well-being, as well as just life and fun with the kids, over a schedule. Yeah. So that was the thing. It was the schedule and just their work. I was like, if I get another Zoom request or emailed assignment, I'm going to lose it, because it's just a lot plus the 5-year-old plus the 2-year-old.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I can definitely understand that.
can you though?
I can have, is it empathy?
Empathy.
I can have empathy towards that. I mean, especially being in close proximity and seeing it on a daily basis. So there's, I mean, like I know I already have and have had an appreciation for what you do and the stress that can come with it. But I think even these days where like it seems like there's no break, I can definitely appreciate it the more and just see where I can help, see where I can step in. And so I'm trying as I'm home more. Yeah.
Everybody home.
Everybody. We are all home. So how y'all doing? How y'all doing? Y'all doing all right? Y'all wanting to run away yet as parents or even as spouses? But I think this is a great opportunity for all of us to grow in faith and patience and humility and love, all those things. So let's jump into today's topic. It's actually based off of a Netflix movie that we watched the other night, and it was a really good movie. I felt like it had some good themes and a good topic for discussion. And so name of the movie was Uncorked, and we will go ahead and throw this disclaimer out there. If you have not seen the movie and planned on watching the movie, this is a bit of a spoiler. We're not going to give you every detail.
No.
But we're going to give you some of the main themes and what's the word?
We're going to give you a synopsis and
and so recent movie came out on Netflix, Uncorked, and
another disclaimer.
Go ahead.
The rating.
Oh, yeah. It is rated MA, mostly for language. So if language offends you, then it might be a bit of a challenge. And it's not like overly like just cussing just to cuss. Like I think a lot of it
I think it depends on your ear.
Oh, well, for me, it's very conversational and not like just overtly just to use the words
compared to other things. But it's still, I mean, you know me.
She doesn't do well with that type of movie, but it wasn't that bad. And then there was one scene that was kind of racy.
What does that mean?
They was getting ready to do some things, and so it showed kind of the lead up to do the things.
Gotcha.
But there's no nudity, nothing like that. But so just give you that bit. So the main theme of the movie is kind of the relationship between a father and son, where the father is a second generation barbecue joint owner. It was passed down to him from his father, and his goal or his desire was to pass it on to his son. But his son had other aspirations. His son wanted to be I was about to say, what's the word? Sommelier, which is like a
wine connoisseur.
Yeah, wine connoisseur. I was going to mess that all up, so thank you. And so it just walks through their journey, and I think the mother plays a significant role in it. I think even the girlfriend is a good voice of reason and wisdom throughout the movie.
Honesty.
Yeah. And so it's a really good movie. I think ultimately we see the father, the father's heart change, but it comes with
work.
Yeah, it comes with work, and I don't even know if it. I think there was still some unresolved stuff or unchanged stuff from the father's side that wasn't fully
by the end of the movie.
Yeah,
you think so?
Yeah, I still feel like
But he smiled.
Right, but smiling and talking and sharing kind of are two different deals.
What do you mean? Are you talking about when he was talking to the owner of the wood?
No, well, maybe like just that last sentence of the movie, I think it was. But just how it seemed like he always struggled to share his emotion, right? He was always, I'm good, I'm okay. And never really shared that with the son. I never opened up to allow his son to see that dynamic. And maybe that stood out to me because of my most recent counseling session.
But I think at some points during the movie he did, like when they were in the garage and his son was like, oh, that's how you're going to say goodbye to me? And then his dad responded. And then when...
He didn't respond well, in my opinion, but
he responded.
Yeah.
He could have just been like, you know what? You can get out. You know, like he didn't do what he usually does and give a one-liner.
Yeah.
But he didn't respond well. I do agree with that.
Yeah. And so in thinking through or kind of talking about the movie afterwards and just watching it, one question that I was left to ponder, which I've thought about before, is like, is it okay to force our kids to follow our dreams in the family business or ministry or whatever it may be? Like, right. Should we be forcing our kids to take on the family business? Right? In this instance, it's a restaurant, right? So the father has received it passed down from his father and he wants to pass it down, which is commendable. Like, I think I definitely understand and can appreciate the father working hard to set something up for his son. But what happens when our children have a different aspiration? Right? Do we force them or guilt them into taking it on? Or do we give them space to go and figure out and pursue whatever is on their heart? What do you think? Should we be forcing? I
don't agree with forcing. I think because I've come into the mindset of Psalms 127. I mean, that was my whole thing. I was aiming arrows and just the revelation that these kids are not our own, that they are loaned to us for this lifetime. And while they're loaned to us, the goal is to hear what God said about who they are and guide them on that path. I think when we don't have that revelation, then questions like this are a no-brainer. Because I think sometimes we want to keep them in the family business to protect them from poverty or to protect them from not having. Because there's a point in the movie, I think the father mentions like not having or we didn't have. And so he took on the business and they have. Like their house is, I mean, you saw their house.
Yeah.
And so I think, no, I don't agree that it's okay to force them into. I think it's okay to force them maybe in order to learn like good business ethic, good work ethic, like learn things about finance, but not with the goal of you are going to take this over and there's no questions about it. Because if God didn't make them to be a restaurant owner or whatever, then what you're saying is that my will is higher than God's will. I know you better than God does. And you're basically muting the voice of the one who created that child.
Oh. And
so there's then that you're creating yourself as the idol. And you don't even, I guess, realize it. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the first time I was kind of challenged with this thought, or not the first time, but an earlier time I was challenged with this question. I was watching that Gordon Ramsay show where he comes in to trying to save the restaurant in 24 hours. And it was an episode where a mother who was previously a lawyer, I believe, she had quit her job as a lawyer to open up this restaurant. And over the course of the years, the restaurant was struggling. And so her oldest daughter, who was a teacher, she ended up quitting her teaching career to come and help the business. She was taking out loans in her name. So like now a lot of the restaurant debt was in her name. And then the youngest daughter was like finishing up high school or just going into college. But neither one of them had any aspirations to go into the restaurant business. And the mother was essentially trying to guilt them into taking over the business, saying, look, I've been doing all this work for you so that you can have something. But it wasn't anything that they had aspirations to take over. And it left them slighted towards their mother. Like Gordon had to come in and do his counseling thing as a chef. But like it just made me think like how many children have taken over businesses and churches from their parents when that was never their heart's aspiration or never God's plan for them. But like you said, like we become the voice of God and like we become the idols, or this family business becomes the idol, all for the sake of what some have labeled as we're building a family legacy. But I think a legacy is so much more than just being able to pass down a business, right? I think it's like being able to pass down wisdom, resources, access,
character.
Yes, character. All of these things are part of a family legacy. Now, a business may be one part of it, but yeah, I don't agree that we should be forcing our kids to take on this family business or whatever it may be without ever giving them the chance to say, hey, God, what does your will look like for me? Like what are the gifts that you've given me, and how can I use them to most glorify you, even if it means distancing myself from the family business.
And I think there was an attempt in the movie. I don't think the father, he didn't ever ask his son what he wanted to do until later. But there was this attempt to include his son's interest when he opens the second restaurant and there's a bar.
Yeah.
And he makes the statement, I figured you could do your thing here. And then that's the same day his son's like, well.
Yeah.
And I think in that part, maybe the son didn't see the opportunity. I think he could have considered it, but I think he was so far into this is what I want to do that he missed that opportunity. But I don't know. These aren't believers, so
yeah. No, I was gonna say, like, I feel like it was almost manipulation on the part of the father, because like he was his ultimate aim, because like when his son was talking about how like it may be difficult or it's a lot, he was like, well, you can go and run the other one. So like I don't think it was ever about making space for his son to do what he loves within the family business. I think it was a ploy just to try and get him into the family business, and then maybe hopefully he'll forget about his dream and step fully into owner of one of the restaurants. But I don't know. So just something for, I know, us to think about, even as we're building this life with gains. There's a lot of different avenues that we're looking to explore, and just challenging ourselves to say, hey, like if none of our children, or if only one of our children want to pick up this torch that we're laying out, one, are we okay with that? And two, how can we do this in a way where even if they don't like follow in these same shoes, we're still giving them access and preparing them for whatever God has for them in the future. So just a question for us to think about. Have you been forced into the family business or family ministry? Yeah,
that would be interesting to know or hear about in the comment section.
Yeah, because I know a lot of preachers' kids who are now in ministry or still involved in either their own church or their parents' church, and business children as well. And I don't know, has the thought ever crossed the mind of either the parent or the child, what if this is not what I was created for? Are we willing to have those uncomfortable conversations? Because I think in this movie, it was an interesting dynamic to see them, to see that play out, to see that conversation play out.
I appreciated their honesty, though.
Yeah.
The sons in particular.
Yeah.
He's courageous.
Yeah. You want to do the next one? One of the other things that kind of the big themes that we saw throughout the movie.
There was a point in the movie. I feel like it's the second time I've asked you to like pause a movie and I like spill my guts.
It's happening more often.
Yeah. Well, so we were watching the movie and I was like, pause, E. And it hit me that this character, the son, was struggling with, well, what if this happens when I go here and do this? This is going to happen. This is going to happen. And I was like, oh my gosh. He has no confidence in himself, and he's so critical of himself because his father has been so critical of everything he's done. And so there is this lack of, he did not receive affirmation with his previous endeavors. And I guess this was like years, because even at the dinner table, his dad makes comments like, we all know, how this is going to go.
Yeah.
His mother was very supportive, gets on even her husband, the dad, about it. But because his father has been so critical about everything that he's done, when the son gets an opportunity, an amazing opportunity, the first thing he does is think about the worst of what could happen, how he's not capable. And even as he progresses to like studying and just different things come up, that those seeds are still there. Like even his girlfriend makes a comment. So I was like, yes, call it out. She makes a comment about like, you always going to find an excuse to not do it or whatever. And that was because that was just his safe place. Like, I'm safe here because I know I'm capable of doing this. But if I were to just go out there, I don't know. It's because his dad never supported him out there. He supported him here.
Yeah. And I think that was kind of something that we had kind of talked about. I don't know if it was during that pause or after the movie, but this idea of like the difference in generations, like the previous generation, because I mean, this kid was, I'm 20s. Assuming early 20s. So his father, 40s, 50s, maybe 60s. And just the generation that he came from in one where maybe his father wasn't affirming, his father was doing the best he could with what he knew. And so him as a father just continuing that on to his son. And so if his father never affirmed him and never pursued, because it came out at one point in the movie where
he didn't go to college.
He didn't go to college, or he dropped out of college because he initially wanted to be a teacher, to teach little black kids how to read. But like he ended up going into the family business because he just saw like the need for the family, for the house. And so he may have never been encouraged to pursue his dream. So he didn't know how to do that for his son. And so
we were comparing it to A Million Things. The
You
black
were.
guy. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
I was. If you watch A Million Things, there's a black couple, and the relationship between the black man and his father is very similar. Rome just always questions himself. Like, he literally says out loud, like, I don't know, should I do this? Did it? Like, he's just that person.
Mm-hmm.
And what if this happens? Da, 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 da. As it comes out in the movie, he almost attempted suicide because he just had this weight and this pressure. Well, then later on, you realize, like, his father he was very critical of Rome. Like, why'd you do that for? Are you sure that script is going to work? Like, just throughout the movie, I just didn't like his dad.
Mm.
And then, of course, his mom is always supportive. But then his mom passes away.
Yeah.
And their relationship, Rome's like, this is it. Every time I do something, you never support me. How come you just can't say good job? Or how come you can't just say, like, I'm proud of you? Like, all my life I've been trying to please you and you never get it. It's the same thing in this movie.
Mm.
And it's a really good show, but I was thinking very similar to generational things, and I think I made the comment, like, is this a black generational thing? But we realized, like, it's not. It's because based on the other character in the movie, his dad did the same thing, but was like, no, you're working, you don't have a choice. Like,
Yeah.
he put his hand to his throat. And so I just wonder if this is like an emotional pandemic. Has business or clout or image or whatever become such an idol and a pressure for men that they feel like they have to make hard boys in order to survive that pressure and not make emotional connections of support.
Yeah, I would unfortunately agree that I think it is, and I think it's partially the father and partially the culture that we live in, especially as Americans, because I think the pursuit of the American dream, like, you always want the best, and so it's the stronger survive. Like, the weaklings, they don't make it, and so there's no room for emotionally weak men, or even men who can't just get up the to go and do it, go and get it done, and so there is this lack of vulnerability amongst men. I think even amongst fathers and sons. I don't know if you were still awake when I was kind of talking through my
We had
my
pillow
most
talk,
recent.
and he said I was asleep, but I was listening, even though my breathing changed.
But one of the things that came out in my most recent counseling session was like, one reason that I try so hard to put forth this strong image amongst those that are in close proximity to me, or even those that are further away, is because, and I don't think I always realized it, but it's because that's the example that was given to me by my father, was one always of strength, didn't show emotion. Like I was telling them, I was like, the first time I remember my father crying was at my grandfather's funeral, which was like 6 years ago.
That you remember, though.
Yeah. And so, like, just always seeing this picture of strength and not seeing a lot of vulnerability from him. Like, that's what I found myself early on, even in my fatherhood land, doing with the boys, but trying now to see that that's not always healthy, that they need that emotional affirmation. They need the support. They need to see the vulnerability from their father. Like, it's necessary for them so that they know it's okay to feel. They know it's okay to fail. They know it's okay to desire affirmation from those that are close to you. So I think it's it was hard to watch the son trying so hard to get, or hoping, I don't think he was trying, but I think he was hoping to one day get his father's affirmation, or for his father to like just support what he wanted to do. And like, I don't think it came until the end of the movie, which is kind of like most movie plots, but
I don't think it came until tragedy, like when it was.
Yeah, it was after the tragedy.
Forced.
Like, it wasn't even immediately after that. It took some time. And I think it was the son supporting the father that kind of led to the father finally coming around to support the son.
I think, and this is why I think, and I believe, one aspect of why Christianity is so countercultural, because you have that affirmation and that compassion and that vulnerability within the relationship of the triune being of God, like God and Jesus, the disciples, just the Holy Spirit, like all of that. Disciples are not a part of the Trinity, I'm just saying. Because I think when I think about from Old Testament to New Testament, the role of fathers who were very strong men, but I also can think of moments where they wept, moments where they were angry, moments when they doubted God and were muted and could not name their sons. And that's different than what we see in society. Moments when God says, he affirms Jesus at baptism, like, this is my son in whom I am well pleased. And I wonder, like, what, I think that's just a product of sin. I think the idea that emotional health and strong men are somehow disconnected is just a product of a broken world that we live in. I think it's just, I mean, you can pinpoint it to like the feminist movement, but honestly, it goes back to the Garden of Eden, like just this disconnect of believing. Yeah, it's just disconnect. So many disconnects.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I agree with you. Like, being able to show the fullness of who you are as a man to the boys is going to be something that's powerful. I think something you said before, you didn't mention on here, but like being vulnerable in context is also important, because there are some points where it's like, I'm not going to throw meat at these boys emotionally, because then that's a traumatic experience, which we get that from our own past. But at the same time, I'm not just going to be cold-shouldered and strong all the time, because that's a lie. Yeah.
Yeah. I think like one of the best examples that I have found when it comes to men and vulnerability is Jesus in the garden at Gethsemane. I always get the M and the N mixed up. But in the garden. And so prior to that, you have the Last Supper, where, you know, Jesus is encouraging and affirming his disciples. He is being honest with Peter, saying, hey, you're going to deny me, but I've prayed for you. So like, even in recognizing his weakness, he's affirming him. And then we see the garden where Jesus is at his most vulnerable state, and those disciples closest to him, like, he tells them that, like, look, I am troubled and basically heavy hearted. And then so he shares that vulnerability with them, and then goes on
in there.
My brain is working faster than my lips. But then he goes a little further, and sorry guys, we have an interruption. Our daughter just busted in the room. Hey baby.
She's gonna have to be in on this episode already.
So we're almost done. So in the garden, we have Jesus, who is like pouring out his heart to the Father. And so Jesus is he's allowing them to see his vulnerability, but it's not just showing you my weakness for the sake of my weakness, but it's showing you my weakness and showing you where I am in turn pointing to my strength. And I think that's the example that we all can follow in one, affirming our children, but then at the same time, letting them see us struggle and see where we are turning our faith to. So, just making sure that we are affirming our children and not just giving them the cold shoulder and saying, hey, just man up, especially to our sons. Because they need it. They are desiring it. Like, I know that was something that I was constantly looking for from my father and countless other men who have testified to the same, that they want nothing more than their father's affirmation. Real quick before we wrap up. So the reason we wanted to share is just a reminder and encouragement to kind of understand our role as parents regarding our children's purpose. I know one thing Esther has kind of coined for this family is archers and arrows, right? As you said earlier in the episode, our ultimate aim as parents is to point our children to the Father, is to point them to the foundation of our faith. And we have to understand that can be done in a myriad of ways, right? It could be that they turn out to be a missionary. It could be that they follow in the family business. It could be that they are a traveling musician or a businessman or a nurse or a teacher, a doctor, whatever. It can be done in so many ways. So us as parents, our role is to provide guardrails for them as they grow, right? We're to guide them along, but we're not to be so frigid that we are making every life decision for them, that we are not planning their life for them, right? Because I think it can breed resentment. It can cause our children to be in places that God never ordained for them to be. Because we, as their parents, we want what's best for them, but what's best for them may also not be what we want for them. Because if we want our children to always remain safe, and I think that's something you said earlier, we bring them into the family business in an effort to keep them safe because we know where they are, we know what they're doing.
We know that they have enough money, or they can have enough, they have a car, they have somewhere to live.
Yeah, but what if God's plan for them is to be a missionary where there is no safety? Are we willing to trust that we are, as we pull them back and let them go, that we've guided them right and they're being led in God's will? So just an encouragement. Go ahead.
Are you saying being mindful of what the target is?
Yeah, the target is Christ, right? The target is Christ. It is aiming them towards a life that glorifies Him, and just understanding that a life that glorifies Him can look totally different than ours and even what we imagine for our children. So, and I think the verse that we have put with this is Ephesians 2:10, where it talks about we're His workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God has prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And
means,
I know we pray for our children. We ask the Lord to give us wisdom and vision to understand their gifts and their callings. But at the end of the day, it might be something that He doesn't reveal specifically to us, or it may not be it may not be as clear a picture as we would like it to be related to what our children ultimately pursue.
I think it's just that Ephesians 2:10 verse just really speaks to us needing to seek Christ, to seek God about this workmanship that has been loaned to us, because it says which God prepared beforehand. So that just reminds me of Jeremiah, I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. And so it's like, okay, God, if you know this child, if this child is your workmanship, I need you to guide me in how to raise them. I may not know how they're going to get to Jesus or how, they will reach eternity. But I think about our kids, like we can see specific gifts and talents they have, specific ways that they think and move. And so that's giving us glimpses of, where they should be guided in. But ultimately, it's not life with gains. It's not being a teacher or being
a spoken word artist.
Anything like that. It's just whoever God has called them to be, which is so hard.
Yeah.
So hard.
Yeah, it's hard relinquishing control, but it's not hard knowing who we're giving them to or pointing them to. So may we find comfort in knowing if we're intentional to aim them towards the Son, that once we release them, the Son has this magnificent way of guiding them directly to himself. So go watch the movie, have a conversation, see how your past is impacting your present, and how if there's any adjustments you need to make for raising your children.
Right. If you prefer not to watch the movie, we'd love to. I think places like IMDb give really good synopsis. Like you can read the script technically without all the extra stuff and catch a glimpse of the plot and the relationships.
Yeah.
I'm only saying that because I know our audience is varied, but majority of you guys are picky about your movies as believers. So, to each his own.
Yeah. Cool. So as we wrap up, be sure to follow us on Instagram. You can follow us at Life with Gains Podcast. You can follow me at life_Emmanuel. And you can follow her at life_Esther. We're also on Facebook, where we're constantly posting clips and pictures and encouragements from just our family, our life. So be sure to follow us there at Life with Gains. If you're on YouTube, be sure to hit that subscribe button right there. Like, comment. We'd love to start a dialogue. Give us some feedback. Let us know how we're doing. And on that note, I'm Emmanuel.
And I'm Esther.
Join us next time. And for y'all that are just listening to the audio, she's yelling because she's leaning back with our daughter on her chest. But join us next time as we journey to make God normal and help others build a life with gains. And bye, y'all.